What's up, y'all? TBrown31 here, back with JaboctheGreat. Once again, we have another episode of the Last Word podcast. And today we're going to get into the 2024 NBA playoffs. They're in full swing. Got some games tonight. But the games we're going to talk about first, we're going to start in the West with the Lakers and the Nuggets. These guys, the Lakers, honestly, look, we're going to get into all this in a sec, but I'm not going to say Lakers should be ashamed of themselves because end of the day, Nuggets are clearly the best team in the West. I mean, we just they're defending champions. Like it is what it is. Like I'm not going to be too upset. But I am overall, mostly disappointed with how they've been playing. And some of the responses from some of our top stars on the team. In the midst of these battles, not super impressed. And you were talking about this right before, like you're not like rooting against the Nuggets, but you at least you wanted to see the Lakers at least do something, which is nice to hear from my co-star here. A lot of people don't like the Lakers. It's not surprising. They are a pretty polarizing team, but with good reason. And I don't know. Just give me your thoughts because I got a lot to say about the Lakers. I don't want this to go forever. So kind of just give me your thoughts on what's been going on in the series so far, as the Nuggets will probably complete the sweep tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm nowhere near as bad as Shannon Sharp, but like I'm a LeBron fan for sure. I would probably say that LeBron is my personal goat, and I would like to see him do well. I'd like to see him get past his team. And I'm not the biggest fan of repeat championship teams unless it's mine, but I'm not usually lucky enough to have that happen. So I would like to see the Lakers make a little splash. And I'm sure people are saying, well, Jacob, the Lakers have like 16, 17 championships. Yeah, not last year. So like, it would be interesting, at least a little different. But I just can't seem to close it. I don't understand how 11 games in a row the Lakers find a groove, find a way to make the series interesting, to make it look like one's coming back to you're going into LA tied 1-1, or maybe we'll go in up 2-0. I think the first game they just kind of lost regularly. But game 2 absolutely should have been their win. Game 3 could have been their win. And I mean, I say I don't understand how it happens because they have these moments where they clearly could just hold on and win the game. But that's because it's usually just like AD and LeBron. I can clearly say that what's happened in this series is that Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, and D'Angelo Russell have not been good. They were okay last year. They had fine averages. Last year was like the craziest example because I think that the Lakers from starters to bench players played well. You got a lot of stuff out of Reeves or D'Lo or Hachimura. They genuinely had one game where they had like every starter scored 20 and they still got swept in that series. So it's like, what are you supposed to do? This year, that's not happening. LeBron and AD fighting for their life. Sometimes LeBron lacking a little effort on defense occasionally in this series. AD in some unfortunate situations after saying that like the league hates him and he should be DPOY, and then a game winner gets hit on his forehead. It's not a great day for him. But I mean, other than that, I think that the series for me has just been like the Nuggets don't really like. It doesn't feel like they hit a run. Obviously, you have Jamal Murray being nuclear in the fourth quarter every time. Each of these games so far, he's been better in the fourth than he has anywhere else in the game. But ultimately, the Nuggets are just consistent. I think they kind of stay at a similar pace as the game goes on, whereas the Lakers come out and like smack them, and then at the second half, like obviously AD and Bron out there doing everything, and they're starting to maybe get a little more tightened up on defensively, or just things aren't as open. Maybe things aren't falling. That happens occasionally, and you're hoping for D'Lo to do something, and then he gives you 0 for 7 from the field in a game 3 where you cannot go down 3-0. No team has ever returned from that. And doing that against this reigning championship team that's really, really complete just doesn't seem to be a super, super likely thing. Game 2 especially, I would say some of it's on Darvin Ham. Obviously, I'm sure people have now seen the Darvin Ham, I don't know what I'm doing with guarding Nikola Jokic. But also, like, I watched KCP hit like 4 threes in game 2. I don't know if that's an accurate number, but that's what it felt like in a row, because he just like treated Kentavious Caldwell-Pope as if he doesn't know how to play basketball. They left Aaron Gordon open for 3. I think that's fine. Though from what I saw, that usually ended up on a brick. However, you can't just let Aaron Gordon get every rebound he wants, or like beat you in the paint every time. Um, I don't know. This has been a weird series. Obviously, it's the 2 versus the 7, so it shouldn't be like the most shocking thing that a 7 gets swept. But the West is really tight, and this team has LeBron James and Anthony Davis and some pretty solid role players around them. I think the issue is that the role players just aren't coming together, and the Nuggets aren't doing anything crazy. They're just staying consistent from start to finish and holding on long enough to get a little dub at the end of it. So, yeah, rough series to Lakers. I would like for them to maybe steal one here in Game 4, but I feel like ultimately that is probably over in Game 5, and so maybe you just want the sweep to be done with and they can move on and not have to keep enduring this. But I don't know. If they can get a win and get a little spark, maybe they can make a run coming back down from 3-0. I'm sure this is not a hot take. I just don't think this is going to be the time it happens. But if it's going to be somebody, I'd say it'd be LeBron. It's just his supporting cast here, and this Nuggets team seems like a really long shot to do that.
Yeah, I changed my mind. I ain't gonna say too much about them because honestly, they don't deserve for me to say too much about this team. Like, look, I'm not saying I want them to lose or anything, right? I mean, if they can win, they can somehow get back in the series and fine. But like, if you're just gonna lose in Game 5 anyway, which they probably will, just like call it a day. Like, I don't them getting swept versus them losing in like 5. I don't care. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. And if they lose in 6, they lose in 7. Like, all right, I can sit here. I can at least hang my hat on saying, hey, they actually showed up in these last few games to make it a series. Because even last year, with the sweep, we were always talking about, oh, it's competitive this, competitive that. It's like, well, they still got swept. And if it's going to be 5 games, like I really don't care that much. Like they're going to put all their heart and soul into winning this game in front of the fans in LA. Fine. Um, but if you're just going to turn around and lose in Game 5 anyway, I don't really care. Just overall, the whole team just the game 2 one is really what pissed me off, right? Because if game 1, you blew a little bit of a lead, and that was frustrating Saturday night to watch. But then you turn around and you do something even worse in game 2. Like clearly something's wrong with this team. In game 3, D'Lo 0 points. The last series against Denver last year, he wasn't good. It reminds me of that Dennis Schroeder game back against the Suns a few years ago. Like you cannot have what you're expected to be like your top probably your third best player, right? Top 3, 4 guy on the team come out there and basically lay a goose egg. And everybody on TV saying, "Hey, we did the same as D'Lo, just sitting here." And it's like, yeah, pretty much. But it's not all on him. Like LeBron James could have been better, and that's not something I generally say. And I understand the man's 40 years old, but a 40-year-old LeBron is better than how many players in the league? Like a lot of them. So yeah, this
Yeah.
this is a total team effort, and taking this massive L. And again, if they win game 4 and they lose game 5, I'm not going to feel any better about it, like at all. No more victories than that. So yeah, I kept it short. There's no point in really giving too much energy when we can talk about much better series. Um, at least for one team here, the Minnesota Timberwolves. It ain't 3-0 yet. It might be later on in the night. Minnesota Timberwolves, they absolutely have been bringing it to the Suns. Look, this, second game wasn't a slaughter, but that first game, watching it this past weekend, I was shocked. I was like, man, this, and it wasn't like that the entire game. It wasn't that bad early on, and then the next thing you know, like into the second quarter, into the third quarter, like boom, 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 boom. Anthony Edwards, great game by him. Devin Booker, not so great game by him. And game 2, obviously, scoring wise, the score differential wasn't as bad. It wasn't a blowout, but still, Suns scored even less than that one. Scored 93 in the second game. Like Timberwolves, look, I mean, again, like you just said, 2 seed versus 7 seed shouldn't be surprising. 3 seed versus 6 seed shouldn't be super surprising. But when you have KD, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker on the other side, even against the third best team in the West, with all those young studs trying to emerge, you would think like, all right, they would at least have some kind of resistance, but they might get swept too. And honestly, like I would say this is probably worse To be honest with you, because again, the Nuggets are, in my opinion, still the best team in the West. Like Timberwolves, they're young. You got some guys that are kind of in their prime, entering their prime. But any team with KD, there's no reason a team with KD should get swept like this. And we know we saw it with Brooklyn a few years ago against Boston. But I would put more money on them to get swept than for them to come back and win the series. So I don't know about you, but yeah, how you feeling about that
That it's honestly probably more likely that they get swept.
one?
Yeah, this Timberwolves defense is really good. It was really good in the regular season. That's obviously why they got to this point, and were able to be the 3 seed. They had a little bit of some faltering going on when Cat was out. Naj Reid stepped up for those 14 games. Um, but they had an interesting season. I'm sure a lot of people thought like there's no way that defensive pressure stays that tight against Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, even Eric Gordon ran team. But it has, and it hasn't been like each game. Like you said, game one is a pretty close game. It looks to be like the first fight of the playoffs, and then in the third quarter, Anthony Edwards just starts torching KD, and they start laughing back and forth with each other, seemingly all in good favor. Definitely some more positive vibes in this series than there were in the other one. Also, there's just been a lot more hustle on the Timberwolves. I have never seen a bunch of like 7-foot men move as quickly as they did in game one
Right.
to stop the Suns from getting rebounds, to box them out, to just keep them away from scoring opportunities. I mean, Rudy Gobert, Cat, and Naj Reid were like moving. It was pretty insane. And you got Rudy. I mean, obviously he's tall, but you got him leading like all the way out of the the out of bounds area by the, I guess you call the end zone, like leading half of his 7-foot body out of there to reach for a ball and sling it back in. Just a lot of effort, a lot of hustle on this Timberwolves team. The Suns might be able to get one in Phoenix, but ultimately I think that there's just not really a lot of like complementary basketball going on with the Suns. They have a lot of great scorers, but they don't facilitate each other super well. And I think they're just not super equipped to get past these defenders. I mean, Jaden McDaniels had both an incredible defensive game in game two and an incredible offensive game. He was their leading scorer in game two. Anthony Edwards did not do good against the Suns in the regular season. Torched them in game one. Counter back to that in game two, where he had, I think, about 10 points. But everyone else was able to step up. The Cat has been in some weird foul trouble. But ultimately, I think that for as young and inexperienced as they are playoff wise, Timberwolves have people like Gobert and Conley who've had their fair share of playoff series. Gobert, especially as a high seed with his little tenure with the Jazz. Conley as well, actually, same team. But I think ultimately that defensive pressure is going to cause the Suns to crack and not really be able to get far out of this series. I would have taken the Timberwolves in this series. Had we made predictions before the playoff starts, I would have probably said Timberwolves, and I would probably say 7. I think seemed the fairest. After game 1 and game 2, I'd maybe be a little more moved to say Timberwolves in 4 or 5. So they've been really dominant, even if game 2 doesn't, the scoreboard doesn't reflect that. Watching that game, it didn't feel like the Suns had a chance. They also recovered a little bit of a lead towards there at the end. But it should also be noted that regardless of the final score, in both of those games, the Suns were held below 100 points. That's
Right.
Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Eric Gordon, Bradley Beal, like a lot of like 3-point threats. You should be able to hit 100 in today's NBA, and the Timberwolves have not allowed that.
Yeah, I mean, just to finish out that's a great point right there. Like differential might not be as big, but only 93 points, in 2024 NBA, like that's crazy for that to happen. So yeah, I think like you're gonna have to have Devin Booker and KD like have some, 30 something point games for them to be able to come out here and win the series. And I just don't know if that's gonna happen. And it's not like again, Timberwolves put up, 120 in that first game, but like it's not like you're expecting the Timberwolves to come out here and score 150 every game or something like that. Like it's really that defense. So unless you can get around that defense, I hate to say it, but we really again might see a KD team get swept or maybe get knocked out in 5 games, but we'll see later on the night. And these next 2 series a lot more interesting, I
Yeah.
guess. Maybe again like OKC right now they're up 2-0 over the Pelicans. Now that first game was very close. Like
Yeah.
2-point game for the Thunder. I definitely would not have expected that. The second game, though, is more of what we kind of expected in this series. Um, and that's no disrespect to the Pelicans, obviously. But it's just, we know how good the Thunder have been all season. Pelicans right now, Zion's been out. And just like a lot of other teams, their best or second best player has been out for this first series. Zion's been that for the Pelicans. And despite that first game, I think the second game is probably more of what we're going to see in this series. But in regards to the Dallas Mavericks and then the Clippers, like I really don't know what to say about this one. I figured coming into game one, it'd be a much closer game, but and again, final score, like ignore the final score because it was not a 12-point game. It was not close for most of this game. Like the Clippers had a 22-8 second quarter. Like this game was not close. Forget what the score says at the end. This game was never close. But then game two, they lose 96-93. Luka getting praise and credit for his defense, something you don't really ever hear too much of, too often, especially, with the Mavs in general. Not really led by their defense. They get credit there holding the Clippers to only 93 points themselves. And this series is all tied up 1-1. Don't really know which way it's going to go now in game three later on in the night. So, out of these two series, I would definitely say Thunder. And Pelicans are probably going to be the one that's going to end up in a 5-4 kind of situation. With maybe the Pelicans stealing one of these two games in New Orleans, but Clippers and Mavs, that definitely can go 7 games. I right now, I'd say it'll probably go 7.
Yeah, Pelicans and Thunder, I think, is going to be short. I think it's the absence of Zion is big because, like the Timberwolves, the Pelicans defense has been amazing. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Valanciunas, not really CJ McCollum, but Zion, Brandon. Those guys have been really good on defense. CJ has been an offensive spark for the most part, not so far in the playoffs. But unlike the Timberwolves, the Pelicans can't get their offense to do anything. They didn't shoot well in that first game, and they still, the Thunder also shot like garbage in game one, and therefore we got a 94-92 really fun game, but just because they were throwing up bricks like the whole game. I mean, the Pelicans had like 3 straight offensive rebounds at one point that they break back to back to back to back. And then Shea finally broke the ice, they got a rebound for the Thunder, and he gets an and one. Second game, the Thunder find their offense. They get 124. Pelicans still can't quite get theirs going, and they end up finishing with 92 again. So without Zion, I feel like their defensive pressure is not just able to hold up enough because they can't back it up with offense. Right? You can't really demoralize a team by cracking down on defense if you also can't score to like put them in a hole. So Timberwolves are going to get you, right. They're going to start. All of a sudden, you're not scoring and they're up 20. That's not good. Pelicans are holding you from hitting shots, but you're also holding them from hitting any shots. Not really feeling too bad. It's just constantly like, okay, we got to get this next one. So yeah, I would agree. About 5 or 4 or 5 for the Pelicans one. They've got a great home arena. I had the pleasure to go see a Pelicans game when I visited my dad down in New Orleans this past winter break. Smoothie King Center can be a really fun environment for them to play in. So I think maybe with that, they could probably steal a game, but I'm not really expecting the Pelicans to come out of this series, especially without Zion. If Zion comes back, we could maybe see it get pushed a little further, but they've really got to get that offense up and they got to hit their shots. Clippers and Mavs, however, has been amazing. First game was as a person who's really believed in James Harden for a while, it was great to see him play a playoff game as if he cared about basketball. He was on fire in the first half, just kind of got everything he wanted. Also, it was like super crucial to the defensive effort. Obviously, Giannis hit him with the I want a guy who can defend in that All-Star game. Started a little beef between the two of them, and people for a while have always said that James Harden's not that good in defense. I mean, you can find highlight reels of Harden just like ignoring people on defense and just letting stuff happen. But when he puts in effort, he's actually a pretty good defensive guard, especially if he's got a defensive big like Zubac to help him out, and that happened a lot in game one. Game two, on the other hand, Luka's defense was crazy. I think they only hit the Clippers only had 2 shots that were directly contested by Luka out of like 17 attempts. So that's insane. Luka, another player whose defensive effort gets kind of questioned. So both of those guys in game one and game two kind of flipped the narrative, and their teams got the win because of it. I think this one goes to 7 easily. This has been a rivalry recently. The Clippers and Mavs seem to match up every single year. Personally, I think that if they can get it together and just kind of lock into more of a game one strategy, or obviously where they won by almost 30 until they let the Mavs kind of come back a little bit. Um, I think the Clippers could take this in seven. I think really what it comes down to is that they get to play it in LA at the last game. Obviously, the Clippers' home arena is a shared arena and everything. So you can argue about, does their home court really matter as much as it would if, say, if this was the Lakers or something,
Yeah.
or it doesn't matter as much as it does for the Mavericks when they're at home. Maybe not, but I think that the Clippers will take this one in seven. If the series stays as it is, if the Clippers kind of keep the same effort up, I think they got kind of put in a blender out of nowhere with the Luka defense in game two. I don't think that Luka's defense is bad, and I think he'll stay a good defender in game three and through the rest of the series. Um, but I do believe that the Clippers can probably adjust to that and try to find ways to get some wins. Not game one type of wins. I think most of the rest of the series we're going to see these kind of 96, 93, maybe not that low scoring, but just really close scoring games here. So yeah, West has been really fun. This was supposed to be like the most competitive playoffs ever, and it has felt like that. And it also has not so far. And the Western Conference has been a big part of that. Timberwolves and Suns start close and then fall apart. The Nuggets and Lakers start up big and then they fall apart. Thunder and Pelicans had a dogfight. Clippers and Mavericks have had a dogfight. So it has been fun, regardless of what narratives we want to talk about with the competitiveness of each series. Western Conference so far has been pretty fun, and so yeah, I think for the first round, we've had a lot of action so far that has been exciting and a lot of good playoff defense.